How's it going, Scrub Gamers? Welcome back to another video here at Scrub Games, and today we have another episode of Previously in DBSCG, and this one is going to be a quick one because not much has come out. We only had the ban list, that was it. And while it doesn't seems like a kind of huge deal finally having the ban list after waiting for so long with the set basically just coming out, officially being released this weekend. It wasn't much of a ban list, to be honest, and there's a lot of things that people expect to be here, like a fair few things, because there's a lot of blue cards. Well, I say a fair few blue cards that were quite dominant and needed to go. A lot of the community thought needed to go, and also a lot of people were expecting that red did also get hit, because if you hit blue, which is basically around to combat red, then red would take back over, and hopefully you'd hit the red as well to bring it down in line, because even though some of the old decks, the red decks that were dominant got hit, they are still very, 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 very overpowered compared to most of the decks in the format. And the list just, didn't really hit it how we expected. And there were some surprise things that we didn't expect to be hit, or some people kept wanting to be hit, but not many people expected them to do that. But we're going to go over it and have a look and see what got hit, and what got changed on the list, and have a little bit of look at it. Also have a look at the Webcam Locals results from this week as well. But before we get into this, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. It keeps you updated with my videos as and when they come about. And if you hit the notification bell, you get alerts when they do, so you can go and check them out as soon as they drop. And we're on the way to 1,000 subs, so any support is appreciated, because we're over halfway there, and hoping to get there by the end of this year. So without further ado, let's have a look at the cards. So, with the ban list, there were 3 cards that got banned. There was 1 card that got limited, and there was 1 card that came off the ban list. So the second time we've ever seen something come off the ban list. Well, technically third if you count when they hit the Universe 9 Assemble, banned that, and then brought it back after realizing the leader should have been banned after they made that little error. And we also got some errata as well. So typical with errata with Bandai Games, there's a lot of stuff that doesn't get printed properly and it gets changed. So we got 2 of those. Not so less than we've got in the less than we got last format, not last format, last set, but still more erratas. And the strange thing is, normally they give a reason to why they've hit certain things, like the reasons behind the choices. But for this one, they didn't give any reasons at all. They just said that these cards be banned, this card's being limited, this card's being unbanned, and these cards being errated. And they kind of give a reason for the errata ones because, we'll get into that a bit. But we'll start off with the banned ones. And start off with the first ban. So the first card we got banned is Crimson Warrior. So the leader. Like, people were expecting this to potentially, like, this was errata before. This was errata back in, I think it was January, at the beginning of the year. They errated it in preparation for the Worlds. And the errata actually made a difference. Like, at the time, it didn't seem like the errata made any difference at all, because essentially what it changed was the Awaken, where instead of being either at 2 or less life or placing 5 Saiyan cards from your drop under the card to Awaken, you now had to be at 4 life and put the 5 cards under there. So they changed it so now you had to be at 4 less life and also put the 5 Saiyans under. So it's a little bit not as easy, but then the leader did also have a way built in to take itself down to 4, while also setting up the 5 Saiyans to drop. And while it didn't seem at the time that made any difference at all, it did actually make a difference, because we saw when it came to Worlds, people, like most of the people were expecting it to either playing it or expecting people to play it. So the people were expecting to play it and didn't want to play it themselves built their decks to kind of combat that, which is basically stopping the leader from entering combat, because the leader's activate battle only triggers if it's in battle. So if you can negate the attack when it's attack and not attack the leader, it can pull it off. And it didn't really have much draw power to keep his hand healthy without that, and most people that brought the deck didn't really bring any ways to get itself down to 4 life outside the leader. So it kind of had a pretty poor showing, and as we saw with most of the people who took it, got knocked out the first round, or even at the second, the one that did get through. So even though it didn't show a great deal at Worlds was still very close. It was just an 8-person event, 3 rounds for everybody, and it didn't do well because people were expecting it to be, because it was the best deck in the format, to come along and build their deck specifically to counter this, because it's a smaller pool of players and cards. And even outside of that, it's still a very dominant deck. Like I think it won the LCQ. It was winning events. It won most of the finals that people took it to. So after the last hit, it was still going strong. And Banlist just saw the only way to really deal with this is to ban it rather than rat it a second time. So I don't think there's many decks that they've errated the same card more than once. Normally they errata and if it's too much of an issue. I think Dark Broly is the only one that really errated it once or twice, being the both its effects as well. I think so, I'm not 100% sure. But that's the first ban card, so Crimson is now gone. So now Blue is going to be probably looking for the next more generic lead. I know people have been going on about Soul Striker, but time will tell. It's what people cook up Blue. But that also opens up, because of like this bit being one of the best Blue decks and Blue taking quite a big hit for this. Red kind of like comes back because Blue was essentially there because it had a great matchup in the red to deal with it, because we were dominated by red in the last format, like back in the set 18 format and even the set 19 as well. Well, set 19 is when this kind of took precedent. And the other bans cards we got were two cards, but they are essentially the same card, and that is Furthest Destruction Champa and Hidden Power East Supreme Kai. So the cards that come down and give the attacking card double strike, these have now been banned. So this one was a weird one because I don't think people, like a lot of people have been asking, like we've seen sometimes when it comes to Banlist, people are expecting this and wanting this to be banned because of the whole issue of just when an attack comes through, being able to turn it from being just a swing to being a lethal swing by chucking this down, like having that surprise double strike, meaning that being at 2 life was not always a safe bet compared to being on your last life. And yeah, these are now gone. These are banned. You cannot run these, and there are some decks that we've been seeing for most of the format, most of the sets now. When Banlist are printing an archetype version of this in that archetype, so some decks still have this as an option, just locked into their specific archetype. But yeah, the generic ones are gone, so it means no longer can you get worry about someone going on a big swing where you're 2 life and then chuck double strike on it. You no longer have to worry about that, unless it's a specific deck or color that's got their specific one. But it is a weird one because it's just the same as like with the bean errata, where these cards have been untouched like they are now for like 20 sets. So for 19 sets until we got the 20th set, these cards have been in the meta, doing the same thing they do, been problem cards ages before in different formats, and after 19 sets they finally decided to hit it, which is weird. Just like with Bean, they decided to hit that after 18 sets. They decided to then errata it to be less abusive. So it's a weird how there's some like set 1 has a lot of really strong busted cards, and over time we've seen them actually get hit or limited because Banlist's been seeing that they're a problem. But some of them are just sneak past and just taking this so long to finally hit them, and these fall in that category. So those are the 3 cards that got banned, and we don't know the reasons why they've decided to finally ban these cards and why they actually decided to ban Crimson Realm to potentially errata it again. No description, so it seems like it was very like short notice. They just want to give Banlist, didn't know what was going on, and that's what we felt like with this entire set, really. That there's been very little communication about what's going on. Like the reveals were very poorly done, and this set just seems like it makes making people feel like they're caring less and less about this game. But then we did get one limited card, and that limited card was limiting the Boo Unison to 1. So this used to be full 4 copies of a very strong Blue Unison. A problem with some decks, like some Blue decks were not like cutting this in favor of Ever Unisons. Like this one's a popular one because Black Smoke can't hit it, and it's a very strong one, be able to block an attack, be able to put something back as well, give draw power as well. And Banner decided to limit this one. It made sense because I think a lot of people had issues with this card because it is that strong. But now that it's limited to 1, it's hit some decks that like relied on this card or needed this card for some things like Blue Bojack, where they needed like it was the best option for it to actually do what it wants to do, and the fact that it's just this is now hit impacts that deck, even though it wasn't really on the radar for most people. Like it does make sense to limit this one, like kind of in a like a small sense, but it's then hitting other decks that used it, more relied on it, just because it's so generic. Like some of the issues with some of these cards is that you get some cards that are so like made for an archetype, so generic, and then other decks abuse them, so that deck gets punished because it's abused in more generic decks. Like this is never a card that's hit in a Bojack deck, and I've seen people who love Bojack post in the last few days about it. Like the decks are getting indirectly hit, like with the Violent Rust Bojack ruining the yellow deck to make it from playable to absolutely dead, just because other decks were using it because it was so generic. And then same with this, Blue Bojack takes quite a big hit from this, even though it got just support as well, got some good support. Losing this as one of the 2 unisons it can use to awaken at high life and awaken as quickly as possible has now gone, and the other one, what isn't is decent, it's no longer nowhere on the level of this unison for the deck. So it's still playable, but it did take a big hit from that. And yeah, blue still have some good unisons, but now they're taking a hit from losing their best one. And also, as I said, for like potentially second or third time we've ever seen it done, a card came off the ban list, so a card was previously banned and came back, and that was Secret Identity Marseille. Now, when this got hit, it was hit alongside the SS4 Bardock Fighting Against Fate, because they were both the most. There were 2 very strong generic overarm cards for the decks, so decks either run one or the other or both, because they just gave options. Like one gave you a 25k dual attack, which could put in quite a bit of pressure for aggro decks, and this card was a very good one for controlling boards, because you can get 25k attacker for free and clear your opponent's boards. Where after this got banned, people were scrambling together to try and find what overrealm they could do, like the next generic overrealm. And then we got a good one in the Dark Broly, and then that one's been power crept to be the SS4 for Vegeta in the new champ packs. And what this comes back is it's still very good overrealm. But then the thing is, I've seen some people say that this is pointless. Like it's come back, but it's not really going to do anything. And people say its comeback is going to be amazing. It's kind of in between, because this offers gives you different options now, like we had before, where you got two decent overarms of choice. You got the SS4 Vegeta, because everybody's going to upgrade that from the Dark Broly, because it's actually got combo power to hit a single target, but remove something from the board. Not worrying about what the cost is or anything like that. Just removing a single target from the board, which could be handy for certain cards, because there's some cards that fall out the range of 6 cost. And then you got Secret Identity Marseille, which deals with very well with decks that want to go wide. So if your opponent goes wide with the board, you can essentially get rid of a lot of them. And this one was very good for token negates as well. And if they drop a token negate, you can get rid of token negate, the token they made, and also whatever cards on the board, and then continue on swinging. So this comes back as a nice choice, but then it's not going to replace the SS4 Vegeta overrun, and it's just be another option that decks have. So it's going to be a good return, and because I think they just saw that even though they're printing decks that revolved around tokens and stuff, because I think that was the whole point, like it ruined any strategy that revolved around tokens. But considering those decks that revolved around tokens did absolutely nothing outside of like a casual level, like at locals, this card really wouldn't made a difference at all, because those decks were not really in the meta or barely ever used. So they brought this back. It was nice to see. Gives us another opportunity to use it. Like it made sense to not bring back Fighting Against Fate and leave that banned, because that was just very impressive. But this one's a nice one to have returned. And then we had 2 erratas as well. So we had an errata to the Android 21 leader, and with this, it used to be, as you see on the province on the card, you can't activate extra cards, and during your turn you can't use skills to play battle cards, and the same on the front side, where during your turn you can't use skills to play battle cards. This basically meant that you couldn't, any card that had a skill to play a card, you couldn't use that skill at all. You cannot use that skill, because you can't use skills to play battle cards. So if you wanted to use, for an example, the Baby Golden Avenger, if you want to use the counter play or counter skill on that, you couldn't with this card. You couldn't at all use the counter or counter play, because it had a skill of all player cards, so you couldn't activate it. So they made an errata now to make it so you can't play cards using skills. So you can now use the baby golden avenger counter to use the counter skill or the counter play skill, but instead of the card being played, it would then go to the drop instead. So it's made it so you can actually use the skills to play cards. You can play the cards off those skills. And then the other one is this Hercule, the expecting the unexpected. Now I'm not sure what really required of this. I'm just trying to remember now what the effect was, but they basically changed it so it was the permanent, where it went from being, if your leader is yellow and has both Son Goku and Vegeta, if you has both Son Goku and Vegeta card, and you have yellow Dende card in play, reduce the energy cost of this card in your hand by 1 yellow. So kind of almost gibberish in that kind of pretense of the text, to now being changed to if your leader is a yellow Son Goku Vegeta card and you have a yellow Dende card in play, reduce the energy cost of this card in your hand by 1. So they've made it now so it's not just if you're not gibberish, it is if you have the specific leader that has Son Goku and Vegeta in it and you have a yellow Dende card in play, then basically you can get them for free. So kind of almost pointless, like a pointless errata, because they could have just corrected that in the first place, but of course, Banda didn't really have a QA department for checking the cards beforehand. So, like as we saw with the last set, they printed things like a super combo that only had 5k power when it's meant to be 10 because they just didn't check it for first hand. And we saw the collector's edition, how they just messed up, just printing out, like putting the text from cards that were already printed correctly and messing them up. But that was all the list update. So we got what was it, 6 I think changes, being 3 bans, 1 limit, 1 unban, and 2 erratas. That was it. So nothing huge, but then we've now lost the surprise double strike factor. Crimson is out of the format, so Red's gonna kind of take over because SS4 and Sin, they were hindered in power, but they're still very strong cards and they're even getting more support. So even though they hit them, they're giving Red just more generic support, because there's someone at Bandai who loves Red and just wants to see it just never leave the meta. But that is it for that. And then we go into the Webcam Locals results. We had a nice 10, like a lovely 10 people that took part this week, and it was a lot more casual in terms of decks. Like we had, like set 20 was legal because it came out that Friday, and as well as that, some people were able to grab the cards to actually play and have fun. I wasn't able to get the last few cards to play, so I wanted to play Yellow Majin Vegeta, so I had to set with a different deck. But starting from next week, should have more people coming along with the new set decks, but we still had some that had a few. So for the results, we had Iratorm in first place, playing Magenta, going 4-0, so taking down, I think he took down the Yellow Trunks, Black Boo, Gamma, and 21, I think. I'm not sure if it took Gamma. Of these 21, I know it took down at least like 21 Black Boo, Yellow Trunks, and something else. I can't remember what the other one was. But yeah, going 4-0 with Magenta, a very meme deck. Then you have Symbiote coming in with Black Boo, always bringing something fun and interesting, going 3-1. And you got Big Notation coming in with Cumber. Managed to get all the pieces from the pre-release beforehand, just to get the deck together. And he went 3-1. Then we have Ricky playing Yellow Trunks, also going 3-1. Do you have myself going 2-2 with Green Turtles, not having a good time running to like an issue with time. I think every single one of my games went to time. And then we have Tattoo Journey being Danny on Gamma going 2-2. And then we had Damien going 1-3 with his Green Cooler. Remy bringing 121 and going 1-3. AF Chicken coming in with Cumber as well and coming in 1-3. And then Johnny with his Yellow Majin Vegeta going 1-3 as well. I think with Johnny's Majin Vegeta, he wasn't able to get all the pieces. I think it's just the starter deck he had. Wasn't get all the pieces from the like set 20 to support him. So that could come into why it was like it did do it strongly. But that was the week 8 results. We're gonna have next week coming up with week 9. Continuing on with set 20 being released, and hopefully we'll see more set 20 decks when people have more of a chance, more time to actually get the stuff together. But that is it for this week. Thank you for watching. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one next week. Bye for now.